Hello Internet, and today's video is going to be another book opinion. Those videos in which I tell you my opinion on a book. And today's book is going to be Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Sanez. And this was a fairly good book for me. I like this book. I really enjoyed this book. And I think I enjoyed this book so much because I got to finally see the Mexican-American family in a YA book. And it's just so great. Like, I feel as a Latina person that I don't see enough Latina representation. I don't see enough Latinx representation in entertainment. And that really makes me sad. But because, like, I'm a mixed person, it doesn't affect me as strongly as it would others. But it is a large part of who I am. So I'm always really sad that I never get to see that, or it's not as widely as available as I have seen so far. So it's nice to see a YA book that did this, that treated the characters like they were people, who didn't try to fall into stereotypes that we do see when a Latinx person is on TV, and was just really nice and really beautiful and really good. And I'm not gonna say like this was my first Latinx book that I've ever read. I am aware that they exist and I have read several, but I've never seen it in YA. Okay, that's the distinction. I've never seen Latinx characters in YA being these awesome, amazing characters that are treated with respect and that aren't stereotypical in some way. They're usually adult books, and they were adult books that I got from my grandmother, because as I've come to realize after trying to figure out my answers to different tag questions, my grandma gave me a lot of interesting books that were really diverse that I think we tend to forget about with this whole diversity thing. We tend to forget about those books that already existed, already did those things, that just weren't as mainstream for you to find. So on to this book. This book is about a boy named Aristotle, and he's just going through puberty, through life. He's becoming an adult and he's trying to figure it out. This is a coming of age story, and he has a lot of things that he's in denial about, a lot of things that he just hasn't fully let himself realize, but he's always thinking. He's always thinking. And I think that's probably why his name was Aristotle, because he's always philosophizing, he's always thinking, he's always trying to figure out the world, and he's very much a loner, and he just likes being alone with his thoughts and thinking about things. And like every other person, sometimes he doesn't want to think too deeply into other things. So over a summer, he meets a boy named Dante, and him and Dante become really, really great friends. And this is the first friend Aristotle has ever really had, and he starts to hear about Dante. And he doesn't realize the full extent, but slowly throughout the book, we're going to see Aristotle and his thoughts and his emotions and his feelings, those things that he's been pent up about, those things that like just have affected him. So one of the great things that I love about this book is that both main characters are both Mexican Americans, but they both have fairly different backgrounds, fairly different opinions about what it means to be Mexican American, how it feels to be Mexican American, and how their homes and houses are run. And I love seeing that. I love seeing characters that usually, like, everyone else would be like, oh, you're in the same boat, you're both Mexican Americans, your lives are completely the same. And then seeing two characters explain to each other, no, our lives are fairly different in some aspects, like how Aristotle is more accepting of his Mexican American and family. He understands his Mexican culture. While he's not like fully Mexican, he's definitely proud of being a Mexican American. Where Dante has a little more problems with it because he feels like he's not Mexican enough. So he kind of resents this because everybody else makes him feel bad that he's too American to be a Mexican. And seeing like these conversations, seeing these kids struggle with this just really touched my heart, because it's something that I have struggled with, being a mixed race person, being a person that has two different countries that I belong to. Like, legally, I'm a dual citizen to two different countries. I was born in Belize. I have lived a lot of my life in America. I've lived a lot of my life in Belize. I just have this whole mixture of places that I've grown up with, people that I've grown up with ideas that I've grown up with, that it's really hard to say that, oh, I'm this one thing, because you're like, well, I'm not enough of that thing. I'm also a little bit of this thing. And like in America, I'm never enough American to be an American, but in Belize, I'm too American to be a Belizean. And it's just frustrating. It's frustrating. So I like seeing that in this book. And I just like seeing how introspective Aristotle was. And like, yeah, he still denied things about himself, but he thought a lot. And I liked seeing that treatment of a teenager in a YA book, because I feel like so many times in contemporary books, they start to diminuize what teenagers feel and be like, oh, it's just raging hormones all the time, just dumb decisions all the time. And it's like, no, teenagers are people with brains, and they think occasionally, and they have feelings and emotions that are justified. They have issues that they see, and they have reasons why they have those issues, and they want to handle those problems, and sometimes they don't. And they are human beings. They are not some foreign entity. They are not aliens. They are not a different species. They are human beings, and they have emotions. So I like seeing characters that were treated with respect, even though they were like said to be 15, 16, right? But they were treated like human beings who had thoughts and emotions and opinions about things and just wanted to know the world. And yeah, they made stupid, dumb decisions, but like, who doesn't? And I liked the treatment of this, because there are certain points in this book, and I don't know why I was scared, but I guess I'm just so used to seeing this in the wider sphere, but I was scared of like falling into Latin stereotypes that we see, and like just like gangs and like and like things like that, where it's just like never everyone's like that. And I didn't want it to become one of those books, because like those books have importance. Not to say they don't, but we have so many different people in the world that I hate just seeing one specific stereotype being given to anybody. So it was nice to see, like, every time I thought maybe, I was like, please don't make it that. Please don't make it that. And he didn't. He didn't. He had a Mexican-American character that he treated with respect, that was a smart, intelligent person who had issues with family, with social life, with just sexuality, all of these things, but he was never a stereotype. Like Dante, Aristotle, they were never a stereotype to be played with. And like I guess that's just why you have to have your own voice authors, because they can give you that feeling, they can give you that joy, and it never feels like they're disrespecting you, because they understand how it feels. So I don't know why I was scared, but sometimes I was, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's how it feels like when a person who is like you writes a story about people like you. You don't have to be scared that they're going to say something horrible, right? So Aristotle and Dante was a good book. I thought it would be more of a romance than it was. So if you were expecting a more like fluffy romance, that's not really what you're going to get here. You are going to get a slice of life, a coming of age of a character who you're going to come to care about, because he is a very sarcastic, sort of like dry humor type of dude, and I love that. I love that so much. So I really loved listening to him, and I love characters who are introspective as much as they can be, who think, who like, you know, react and act and like just comprehend the world as best that they can without like just jumping into things all the time. So I like this book, and I'm definitely curious to see more. I think this was the least angsty book that I picked up by this author, because I picked up He Forgot to Say Goodbye, and I was originally going to read that as my first book by this author, but that book was so angsty in the first few chapters, and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna have to put this down and maybe visit it later. And this wasn't as angsty, and I was like, whew, just the right amount of angst and I can handle this. So if you've read this book, comment down below how you feel about it. Like, how you feel about it minus all the hype, all of that. How did you feel reading it? Did you think it was a good story or not? And please, like, try to take out that, like, booktube hype that may have affected your reading, because I've heard from several people that that was something that really affected their reading of this book, which is a really sad thing when like other people's opinions and emotions really like alter you beyond an extent that you can't come to the book objectively or fully objectively. So just those feelings down below. And if you like what you're seeing here and you want to continue to see more, click all those bunnies, and goodbye, internet.